Subscribe to The Honest Critique for current affairs, movie, book, and product reviews. Also, make sure you press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the video series are solely those of the individuals and do not necessarily represent those of The Honest Critique and its employees. The following video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers. Viewer discretion advised.
I'll start with the first question. So, how do you interpret the surprising or not so surprising outcome of the recent Pakistan general elections, particularly in the light of the historical precedent of the interference of the army?
See, the election results are surprising for the military and anybody who was just looking at the military and not watching the people, but not surprising as far as people are concerned. And there are several reasons for it, but two that I can highlight is one, Pakistan Army has never been able to catch up with people's sentiment as far as voting goes. So from 1970, with a completely misinterpreted and misconstrued to this one. The sentiment on the street, they thought they could manage, but they couldn't manage. They thought that the political partners that they will bring on board, like Pakistan Muslim League, Nawaz, will able to kind of shoulder at least half of the burden of bringing people to, to vote for them. Didn't work. And I think the second thing what the military missed, and which even Nawaz Sharif missed, is people's changing sentiment. It's not just that people are besotted by a populist, it's also that they're very tired of traditional politics, of a family style of politics in which nobody gets any space except for Nawaz Sharif's family, close family, and close friends. So people have rejected that traditional kind of politics. And finally, I think what is very evident is that an instability has been inserted into the political and social system because of how elections were managed to bring about a certain confused result at the end. People will not accept it. People are very unhappy with it. And this instability will be there, if this government is to complete the next 5 years.
And when we look at the potential for the coalition building, and we have seen the PPP and the PMLN actually having a coalition, but there is a fragmentation of the political support. Like, what challenges do you foresee? Do you think it will be a stable government in Pakistan following these elections?
Well, I think instability is a big question. That will be a problem. And what they've done, apparently, it seems that they've decided to sit in a coalition and divide the government. So, first half, it will be the PMLN, second half, it will be the PPP. So, trying to satisfy the voter base. Now, as far as Pakistan People's Party is concerned, it's not really managed to make inroads in Punjab. Its control of Sindh remains, and it will strengthen if it is in government. So that it's not affected. PMLN is the one which needs to worry, especially the PMLN, which wanted to get complete support from Punjab. Most likely, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz will form government in Punjab, and it'll again be a rocky government because 137 seats have been won by Nawaz, some through coercion, some they actually lost, but there was results were managed. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf has already challenged, I think, about 100 results in national and provincial put together. Some may get decided in their favor. So it's kind of, an evolving kind of seen here. Um, but I don't think that, um, and I think since they're going to make government, and since what lies ahead is something which is not going to make them popular with people at all, which is negotiation with the International Monetary Fund. Uh, I mean, if they were a bit, you know, wise about it, they would have made sure that PTI, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, makes the government and has to deal with International Monetary Fund. That would be that's a huge burden in itself. So, what is going to happen with the IMF negotiation is going to be more taxes, more asset sale of public sector assets. None of it is going to make any political government in power. So the anti-incumbency factor is going to be more biting in next elections. I mean, if they're going to happen earlier or later, we don't know. But definitely, it's not going to make any of these governments popular.
And just from a youth perspective, as a young person, I was just wondering about the PMLN as a party doesn't have an appeal to the youth voter as probably an Imran Khan's party would be. And we don't see new faces as well from the PMLN. Of course, you have Mariam Nawaz, but we don't see her in the forefront as the Nawaz Sharif would be actually. So is with we have seen with the PPP, Bilawal does have at least a young face. But do you think with parties like the PMLN and the PPP, it's increasingly losing the youth voter base?
I thought I was a bit impressed with Bilawal. I'm not impressed with Mariam at all. Bilawal definitely, because he understood the youth sentiment and he appealed to that. I mean, he was talking about, he tried to reach out to the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. He was talking to the PTI voter. He was respectful of this sentiment. He at least understands. But his problem is his father, who is a pragmatist and who does real politics. That's all he knows. He wants to secure Sindh government and whatever share in the federal government for his son. Um, son tries to be more proactive. So that's PPP. I think what PMLN completely missed, and what the establishment, even the military establishment, completely misunderstood and definitely didn't comprehend, is that this youth, the 44.6% voters were 18 to 35, younger lot, who not only expect change, who are tired of traditional politics. They're tired of military's intervention. They're tired of the same kind of traditional, uh, you know, uh, uh, patronage politics, and who do not know either Nawaz Sharif or even Benazir Bhutto or Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. The slogans that, for example, for the longest, the PPP was using, that, we have sacrificed so much, my grandfather, my mother, my uncles, you know, and in his so-called victory speech, he was Nawaz Sharif was trying to remind people, when I came in power in 1990 and I did this and I did that. You know, majority of of the vote bank which was present there, which voted, was not even born in 1990. They don't, they haven't seen him. They don't know him that way. And he is not the hero. That's the problem. And they need, it's a different kind of dynamics at play, which the traditional leadership just didn't catch up with.
And moving from that, I wanted to ask you about the legitimacy or the credibility of the elections, of course, have been questioned, especially with the allegations of vote rigging. Uh, how do you look at this controversy surrounding the disqualification of the PTI candidates? And is it good in any chance for the democracy out there?
Now, election management is something which the military has done even before. It happened in 2018 elections. It has happened now. It has even happened before. I mean, that post-election management, changing some seats here and there. So I would comfortably give the PTI another perhaps 20 to 25 seats in the National Assembly, which would really increase their numbers. I mean, if rigging hadn't happened, bad, and I think it will be bad for the sentiment of the voter, which will either wait for an opportunity to come back, because now for any government which comes to power, the only hope would be that somehow, by some magic, the economy turns around, um, and they can show results, which I don't think is about to happen. So, with that kind of a depression, with a government which people feel doesn't have their mandate, uh, no, I don't think that uh, these traditional parties have a future.
And what do you look at the role of the incarceration of Imran Khan played in galvanizing support for his own party, particularly the challenges his party faced during the campaign? Do you think that added a little bit of sentiment, which probably would have solidified his voter base a little more?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Pakistan, Pakistani people definitely have a sympathy for the underdog, and they saw him as somebody who was being punished um, by the military establishment. And these three decisions, especially regarding his marriage, made women very unhappy. The amount of women that came out to vote, the voter turnout is over 47%. So it's quite a large number. And had they not managed, voting on election day, I mean, for example, what the Election Commission of Pakistan did through the National Database and Registration Authority was throw people in different directions. For example, if you have five people in one household, three would be sent in a totally different, far off place to a different polling station. Two would be sent to another, making it difficult for all, if not, most, if not all, to cast their votes. The election turnout was over is around 48%. It would have been higher had that kind of mismanagement or deliberate management not happened. People were angry, people came out to vote. I think that's important. And women have voted. I mean, forget about youth, women have voted. Women, I mean, I was talking to uh, people in South Punjab, and they said that how, I mean, some returning officers, they said how all women, forget about young, even old women came and they said, we want to vote for, prisoner number 804. People knew exactly what was the symbol uh, of their candidate. They made sure they knew what was the symbol of the candidate. So what was expected, that it's going to put people off track. They wouldn't know what symbol is. There is no united symbol of Pakistan Tehreek Insaf, and therefore people will be unable to vote. People sought out their votes. People, actually found out who was doing what symbol was their candidates.
And it's still early to ask, but still, I wanted to ask you, when I look at the vote share of the other political parties like the MQM or the Jamaat Islami and the TLP, we see a significant decrease compared to the other elections. Uh, what implications do you see does this performance would have for the future political landscape in Pakistan?
Firstly, let me make it clear that religious parties in Pakistan have never scored a lot. People can go out and support them in the streets, but not during elections. This election, they've been completely wiped out mainly because the battle was between PTI and the rest. And people didn't want to waste their votes. So JUIF has been reduced to, I think, about 2 seats in the national, about 10 seats in Balochistan, uh, and a fewer in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So they've been religious parties that they've been wiped out because people didn't think that was where the battle lay, that they needed to waste their votes. And that's what people did. And now, which means that religious parties can, they can still howl and cry and on finality of prophethood or, religious issues, they can come out on the streets, but it's not going to get votes. It's not going to impress, people. They don't, politically that way they have less of a role.
Which is surprising because in the international media, you hear about the polarization of the society, and you don't see people voting actually for religion, but actually for someone like Imran Khan. I mean, of course, he has also inculcated a certain section of religion in his messaging, but it's
See, you're answering the question. You're answering the question that you were meant to ask me. Uh, Imran Khan has brought together, the secular and the liberal and the religious. I mean, he talks about the state of Medina. He talks about uh, a religious state. I mean, if you look at the election manifesto, it is very laced with religious sentiments as well. So I don't think people have an issue with that. This is not. And by the way, I mean, so much. So is the case for Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. Many of the decisions that have been taken, keeping, uh, the country, the society in line with the religious ethos, or religious ideology were also carried out by Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, PPP, no different. So I don't think there has ever been a battle there. Uh, very clearly, the two things on which people vote. One is this candidate capable enough to and smart enough to get me development from the state, share of state resources, jobs, roads, electricity, gas connection, and many more, much more. And secondly, does this candidate represent my political desire? And on those two fronts, uh, it seems that religious parties did not necessarily fit, and now they've been kind of wiped out because of that.
so. I have two last questions to ask you, and something I wanted to ask you about the foreign relations part here. And it's interesting because it's not just the IMF loan that the Pakistan and all the world was watching, but surprisingly, the US reacted very positively towards this. And when I compare it to the Bangladesh elections, how the interference of the Sheikh Hasina government was being mentioned, we haven't seen much mention of the army's interference in the elections. Could you put into context how the US might see this, or how the foreign relation of Pakistan depends on this election?
See, I think US is kind of sitting and watching. And I think very simply what, they have raised concern about rumors of election rigging. They're trying to appear as neutral as possible because they would get affected. I mean, say, for example, somehow in negotiating uh, with the establishment, PTI manages to find a space for itself in the government, which it won't, by the way, not in this government, then the United States will have to deal with it. So it can't aggressively say something that it'll have to then kind of swallow. The other is that so far things are going according to plan. Um, the military is offering a government which is a coalition government, which will go and talk to the IMF, which will not deviate from the earlier plan of sticking with the United States as well as with China. So nothing substantive is there on the cards as far as foreign policy, any change in foreign policy is concerned. That's number one. And number two, I think what uh, what I'm sure the United States has appreciated that Pakistan is no Bangladesh. In fact, what makes me proud as a Pakistani is that yes, I mean we constantly berate ourselves and say, look, we're not even Bangladesh. Yes, economically they've done better, but politically, uh, I think this is a moment to be proud of. That Pakistanis, despite all their instability and confusion, have done better than any other population that way in South Asia. No force, no, they've decided. I mean, I, as an individual, can disagree with these, with how people may have voted. Uh, but that's definitely their choice. And they have very proudly stood up, marched to vote uh, to make their choice. They've not been forced by one thing or the other. So that way, yeah, if financially we are not like Bangladesh, but politically we're not Bangladesh either.
What are the potential implications of the election results for the civil-military relations in Pakistan, particularly in the light of the rejection of parties perceived to be aligned with the military establishment?
It's like jumping the gun. No, I don't think that there is that kind of a pressure for the Pakistan army to get from behind Asim Munir. Asim Munir is in charge. And the army wanted a weak coalition. So people may have voted with their own interest. The army is going to, because it's the most consolidated institution, it is going to use the results to its advantage. So a weak coalition in which the army has a greater role in the coming days and months. Perhaps the only thing which I can foresee is that, maybe uh, it makes the generals think, it may make Asim Munir think about, his extension. He retires in 2026. So let's see if there is a lesson there, and generals don't support him for that. That's a distant possibility. And well, we'll talk about it when we have to cross the bridge. The other thing is, yeah, basically, an overall lesson on how people. It may have, it may cause some anxiety within the army itself, but I don't think there are any immediate long-term consequences. Civil military relations will remain the way they've been for the last 65 odd years.
So thank you so much, ma'am, for taking your time and speaking to us.
Welcome.